I'm an albatross. Yeah.
Now,
he waves the white flag.
Because Livio somehow has the clairvoyance to check the 6 nuts, Dan Smith gets locked out of the First National Bank of Value 5th Street branch. Just quads, guys, just quads. These any good? Quads any good?
Now up to nearly 4 million in chips.
Just almost 4 times the tournament average. No big deal. Cash, though.
Over to the other. Pocket sixes for JC Alvarado as we return to the main feature table.
Well, JC's on a bit of a heater.
He raises, makes it 45,000.
Speaking of heaters, this is the one guy at the table running hotter than JC. This kid makes more hands than a mannequin factory.
Dan Smith has King Jack off, calls from the cutoff.
Speaking of, have you ever seen Mannequin 2 on the move? It's really underrated.
You may be the only person on the planet who's seen that movie. Tobias Reinkemeyer has Jack 9 suited in the big blind.
It's a decent hand, and he's getting ridiculous pot odds.
He calls as well.
Even though we know he's dominated by Dan.
3-way to the flop. And Tobias Reinkemeyer flops a full house. Dan Smith flops trips. Nothing for Alvarado, the original raiser. Action's been checked to Smith. He bets 85K.
Dan Smith has made another huge hand. This time it's not the biggest, though.
Reinkemeyer calls.
After betting a call, not much shot JC sticks around here.
He folds. Heads up to the turn. Which is a 6. JC's so lucky he folded on the flop. Reinkemeyer checks again. Smith bets again. 181,000.
Sick cooler developing here.
Reinkemeyer calls.
Both players are playing this like they absolutely know they have the best hand, and most of the time they'd both be right. As for right now, Dan is in deep doo-doo.
The river's a king. Smith now has a better full house.
OMG. This kid spikes more than a lie detector on Capitol Hill.
Reinkemeyer checks, hoping to induce some kind of bluff from Smith. This is not a bluff. This is a value bet. 384,000, and it's bound to get paid off. It may even get raised.
This is a slam dunk value raise situation. There are only 2 hands on the planet that are beating you, Kings and King Jack. King Jack is the more believable of the two if it weren't for the fact that it would have to be the case Jack.
Hold on.
Reinkemeyer shoves.
The double check.
Call.
Dan Smith calls, and we lose the German from the tournament.
Like the refrigerators at the Center for Disease Control, this is just a sick cooler.
Good hand.
No kidding.
Tobias, it's okay if you want to scream.
All right, good luck. Yeah.
Somebody go ask Dan Smith if it's uncomfortable having that horseshoe up there. Looks uncomfortable. What? I mean under his hat.
14 players remain, and Dan Smith now has close to 5.3 million. We will crack open that €3 million prize pool. 8th place pays 123 grand. The winner gets more than $1 million.
Kind of a big bubble here. 9th place gets 0.
Eric Seidel has folded. Mike Watson has 10-6. He also passes. Ace-king for Dan Smith.
He has all the chips and all the good cards.
Raising with a legitimate hand this time, 65,000. The short-stacked Artem Litvinov with ace-10 suited.
He's got to push here. He's just unlucky to run into ace-king, or maybe even worse.
He moves all in for 159,000. We know he's going to get called in at least one spot. JC Alvarado in the small blind. Folds an ace. Mike McDonald, queen 9, gives up the big blind. Dan Smith calls. Litvinov's at risk.
I wish he could have at least got one last coin flip in. I'm going to be so bummed if he doesn't make the final table. Maybe Shakurchi will do something funny and entertaining, like sit on an ab ball. What do you think, Talal, huh?
Litvinov looking for a 10 or hearts. Only 1 heart on the flop. There is a 20% chance of a split pot. A 13% chance that Litvinov wins outright and doubles up.
I never thought I'd say this before, but come on, Russia!
The turn card is a diamond. Litvinov needs a 10 for the win.
Only 2 left in the deck.
The river is an 8. Dan Smith's ace-king holds. Artem Litvinov is the bubble boy. So much for the lucky chair. Dan Smith with the chip lead in the small blind.
Pass your chips, please.
Dan should be raising him here 100% of the time and just calling the shove. Or...
Yep, he bets enough to put McCrink all in.
Snap call. Snap call. Snap call. Snap call.
Good luck.
McCrink eventually makes the call.
Nice call.
Jim won't need luck. He'll just need some non-unluck.
Hearts are my favorite too, just so you're warned. And I'm a flush specialist.
And he's been running super hot in this tournament so far.
And he's dressed like a plumber, one of the Mario brothers.
That's the wrong color. That's the proper color.
Oh yeah.
Specialist, more like a shaman.
9 of hearts would be pretty great.
Well, that's sporting. There's Jim's wife on the rail. She doesn't want to see a heart.
There it is. That'll do it for McCrink.
I'm just playing with you.
You are a flush specialist, aren't you?
You should see him work the urinal.
Jim McCrink, first man out of the EPT Barcelona Super High Roller.
These are regular biscuits because his friend is on Atkins. Didn't I say that?
That was a pertinent detail that you omitted. Action has been folded to Mike McDonald, who has ace-10 under the gun +1.
Huh?
And he's raising, makes it 120,000.
Mike McDonald, you are my little gentleman.
Mike Watson on the button. 6 deuce. He'll muck that. Dan Smith in the small blind has ace-jack of clubs.
Yep.
This is 1,000% a 3-bet. There's a good shot these two get it in here, provided Hillary doesn't wake up with a monster.
Smith will re-raise. Makes it 295,000. Hillary does not have a hand. It's back on Mike McDonald.
Well, Mike McDonald, win in Rome. That was Shh's girlfriend, Cam. This is Dan's girlfriend, Monica. Hi, Monica.
He shoves.
I call.
And Dan Smith calls.
Sweet Lincoln's mullet. It's Domination Nation for Mike McDonald and his Ron Burgundy shirt. Mike McDonald's kind of a big deal, but unfortunately Dan Smith has many leather-bound books.
That is a horrible flop for McDonald.
Mike only 7% to survive this hand now. It's science.
Looking for a 10. Now looking for a jack.
Well, he didn't lose any equity there. It's so damn hot. Milk was a bad choice.
3 outs for Timex. No jack on the river. He's eliminated in 5th place.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, it really got out of hand fast. Brick killed a guy.
Nice playing with you.
Handshakes all around. Stay classy, Waterloo, Ontario, Canada.
A disappointing finish for Mike McDonald. He started the day as one of the big stacks, second in chips, and not that far behind Dan Smith. So he was probably expecting a better return than 215,000 euros. And Dan Smith's chip lead is now just ridiculous. 7.4 million? Come on.
Either that or Rakes pick Chip Uppington.
So we're now four-handed. All the remaining players guaranteed at least 300,000 euros. Action's on Mike Watson. He has Queen-Jack offsuit under the gun, and he raises to 130,000. Dan Smith still stacking Mike McDonald's chips.
Well, it takes a while when you have 7.5 million of them.
Lines are still 30-60, Dan. Ace-10 of clubs.
Well, he's certainly not folding.
Question is, will he call, play a flop in position, or re-raise? He calls.
He calls not wanting to let Mike get away, but now it's him. He's gonna have to get away.
Hillary Samias with ace-queen suited in the small blind. 3 bets to 400,000. JC Alvarado has king-queen in the big blind.
What in the heck is going on here? Are we playing with a pinochle deck?
JC folds, as does Mike Watson. Action's back on Dan Smith.
Hillary had every single hand dominated somehow. Smith probably can't fold this in position, and if he calls, he's got to pretty much call any bet on the flop as well.
I'm all in.
He shoves.
I call.
And Hillary calls.
And despite the fact that he's behind, this was a great pressure shove from the big stack. He knows Hillary is going to be 3-betting a pretty wide range, some of which he could fold. And now that he's gotten in bad, he can still lose without it hurting much.
Hillary is ahead, but he is the player at risk.
Kymppi tulee aina. Mulla on fiilis, mä tiedän. Siikattaa kymppi tulee aina.
Hillary says he always gets stung by a 10 and he can feel it's coming.
Well, Dan Smith hasn't lost many of these confrontations, no matter what he's held. I don't know if he's lost any.
Here comes the flop, which has a 10 on it. Hillary's feeling was correct.
Dan sucked out more often than the world's worst rattlesnake handler.
Hillary Samias has one out because JC Alvarado and Mike Watson both folded queens.
Peter Jetton on the right. He busted out just before the final table.
Hillary with just 11% equity. Make that 3%.
One last card in the deck that can save him. One chance to hit it. Dan Smith about to be an absolute beast.
The river is not the case, queen. We lose Hillary Samias in best.
We got there.
9-10 for Dan Smith on the button in the small blind. Raises to 225,000. Pocket queens for JC Alvarado.
Not only does JC have the chip lead, but now he's getting hands. Typically the ladies come after you in the super high roller, but I'm sure he's happy to see them now.
He 3-bets to 700,000. Things turning around here for Dan Smith. Is his golden run over?
Possibly. That hand's a teensy bit weak to be calling 3-bets with.
Smith flops bottom pair and a straight draw.
JC's holding 2 outs to his gut shot, though, and his implied odds aren't great if he hits it.
He goes check on the flop, and it's a 9 on the turn. I spoke too soon. Dan Smith's run is by no means over.
And unfortunately for JC, that's going to look like a very safe card for him.
JC now bets 750K.
JC looks a little agitated. You know Dan's not reaching for chips with total air here. Best case scenario, he's got a jack or a super strong draw. Worst case, the hand he's got.
Smith calls. We go to the river, which is the inconsequential 2 of clubs.
That is such a brick. JC might think he can bet for value. Poor guy.
He is betting 1.4 million.
Dan most likely should be raising this river. It's really easy for JC to be value betting worse, which he is, and he's just not going to be beat very often. Also, it's such a polarizing spot that he's going to get paid off a fair amount of the time.
That is a big raise. 4.8 million total.
And we had to cut away because JC just threw up in his mouth a little. Shoots him a look. It's a very polarizing bet. Dan's either got a 9 or he doesn't. JC's put so many chips in this pot and was probably so sure he had the best hand. This spot is grosser than the piece of carpet the dog sleeps on.
Alvarado makes a great laydown.
Another really well-played hand by JC. It's a shame he had to lose it.
Nice hand there. Thanks.
And Dan Smith is
when he was already a millionaire.
Blinds up again, 61-20 with a 20K ante. Kings for Alvarado.
JC's got about 20 bigs.
250.
He raises to 250. Dan Smith has ace-king.
Oh, it's all going in here. Really good spot for JC to double up.
All in?
Smith shoves, Alvarado calls.
Now, even with this loss, Dan's still gonna have a monster stack compared to JC. He'll still have more than a 2-to-1 chip lead.
Don't assume it will be a loss. Dan Smith has got lucky from time to time in this tournament.
Truth.
He does have an overcard. He does have 30% equity. The flop. Has an ace on it.
Oh man, isn't that the story of this tournament? That's the whole story. Dan Smith plays good. Dan Smith gets business end of cooler. Dan Smith gets there. The end.
Might be the one-outer.
Just one card in the deck can save JC Alvarado.
Second place is pretty good.
Burn.
Dan Smith is on the verge of lifting the trophy here in Barcelona. The only river card that will stop that happening is the King of Spades. It's a three. Dan Smith has done it. JC Alvarado's the runner-up, but bow before King Dan, who's earned the super high roller crown.